Hey everybody, Scott Roberts here from Explore Scientific, and today I want to talk about one of my most favorite parts of the sky, and that would be in the Virgo constellation, because that is where the heart of the Virgo cluster of galaxies is. These galaxies, it's called the realm of galaxies. It's a forest of galaxies. These galaxies are about 50 million light years away. There's at least 1,300 of them, maybe upwards of 2,000 of these galaxies. I've included a link that talks about the Virgo constellation. And the reason why I bring it up right now is that, you can see, with the help of a planisphere like this Tyrian planisphere, you can see that the Virgo constellation is going to be up all through the end of May and then through June. Towards the end of June, it's going to be getting a little low for you to see any of these objects with any reasonable amount of darkness during these summer months. If you'd like to know more about the Virgo constellation, Dave Eicher, in his book Galaxies, has a great description about them on page 150 and 151 through a few more pages like that. But he gives a great description of the Virgo supercluster. And what's so cool about it? Okay, well, it's 50 million light years away. The brightest members of this supercluster can actually be seen with a fairly small aperture telescope with low power eyepieces. Examples of a small aperture scope might be, kind of this nicer ED Apo. This is an 80 millimeter airspace triplet, but it could be done with a simpler achromat or a smaller reflector. If you want to see, over 100 galaxies, then you'll switch to something like, a Dobsonian telescope. This one is, let's see if I can get this whole thing up here so you can actually see the mirror. That is an 8-inch mirror back behind there. 8-inch Dobsonians are reasonably priced. You can see them on our website. And this is the First Light 8-inch Dob, which I think that you really like. But always to start off with, when you're observing a constellation and you're learning a new constellation, get your planisphere, get your red flashlight. You're going to need a red flashlight so you don't ruin your night vision. You're going to stay out till your eyes are quite well dark adapted. That might take out half an hour to 45 minutes. If you're doing it in your backyard, turn off your porch lights. Ask your neighbor to turn off their porch lights if you can, and wait until you can see the Milky Way. Find the constellation, start off with a pair of binoculars and learn the outlines of the constellation, the stars in that constellation. If you got some large enough aperture binoculars, you might be able to pick out some brighter, more interesting deep sky objects in that field. But it'll really start to be revealed once you get into a telescope in that area. But, the thing I always tell people when they're looking at the light of a distant galaxy, I remind them that they're looking at fossil light. But these are when you are looking through a telescope, you are seeing the original photons emitted from the stars in those galaxies after traveling across space and time, 186,000 miles a second, 5.9 trillion miles a year, 50 million years back into time, a time when, humans didn't even exist on planet Earth. So it really, if you let it soak in while you're observing like that, you're going to find, you're going to find some things change in your mind about space and time. I always recommend that you use low power eyepieces when you're observing galaxies as well. And I use several different focal lengths of low power eyepieces with my scope. This is a 34 millimeter, 68 degree apparent field. This is a 32 62-degree apparent field eyepiece. You can get smaller apparent field eyepieces that cost less, but with a larger apparent field of view, especially when you're using a Dobsonian, the object will stay in the field of view longer. As I mentioned, I use several different focal lengths because as you push the focal length slightly up, or excuse me, the magnification slightly up, which would be a slightly less focal length than the eyepiece, you will attenuate maybe a little slightly better contrast. So looking at galaxies, maybe you use anything from like a 20 millimeter, and depending on what kind of telescope you have, maybe down to a 40 millimeter. So very, very handy. But anyways, check out the Virgo cluster. If you can, get out to some dark skies. Practice social distancing as always during this unprecedented time. And keep looking up.